Hello and welcome to episode 56 of Entertainment of Excellence, the podcast where we
I'm
talk about
Thom.
films, TV, all of it. Hi, I'm Ollie.
And I'm Ben.
And today we're talking about the 2020 film A Quiet Place Part 2. This will contain spoilers.
Yeah, that's entertaining. So Quiet Place Part 2 picks up right after Quiet Place Part 1, apart from the flashback at the start. So the first thing you see is like a day one thing. It says day one, so it starts with shots of empty streets. So you're like, "Ooh, baby, it's already happened," but actually, they're just all at a baseball game or something. But those shots are cool, like empty street and there's traffic lights and stuff, which reminded me of Cars, when there's that one traffic light in wherever the place he goes to is. And then, a big asteroid comes or something, aliens attack everyone. Then you cut to where you left off at the end of the last film. So John Krasinski is dead, and they have a baby. So they get like the little box and the oxygen thing, and they move off towards a fire they've seen on a hill. Because maybe there will be people there, and that's where they meet Cillian Murphy. Who has a little setup with where you go down a chute, and then there's like a furnace you can lock yourself in to protect yourself. And he's got a radio where you can hear a song playing. It's like Somewhere Beyond the Sea. And then what's she called? Regan, the deaf girl, realizes that means there are people beyond the sea that might need help. So she tries to go. They go to the island where there are people after a bit of an encounter on the docks. And it seems to be like a safe haven, but then one of the monsters has drifted across on a boat, which attacks the island, and it's like, oh no! And then, they manage to get to the radio station and broadcast like the high-pitched hearing aid thing to all the radios, which allows the people, the son who is in the furnace bit, to fend off a monster that's there by using the high-pitched frequency. And then it ends. That's it.
It does. Yeah.
It does end.
Bit of a cliffhanger like last time.
Well, not really like a cliffhanger, just kind
but
of
like it
the
doesn't
end of
feel
a
fully resolved.
TV episode. Yeah.
Yeah. Should we briefly talk about the opening thing, like the flashbacks?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I did really enjoy those sequences, but it didn't really it was probably just exactly how I'd imagined it. I think the only thing it really answered was obviously that they came out of the sky, and as you were saying about that shot with the traffic lights, I really like that because obviously initially you think, oh well, this is going to be during the sort of apocalypse, but in reality it's just like just before it. There's a few things I don't really understand in that scene. Like he does go through a red traffic light and then he just doesn't pay for his shopping, but I think I really enjoyed that stuff, but it wasn't necessarily like it didn't have any really shocking revelations. I didn't feel it was just kind of pretty standard backstory.
Yeah, it was quite tense though when they first arrive, and the thing where they're like walking away, and then in the background you see like one of the monsters kills someone, and then John Krasinski starts like running. That was I really liked that shot. That was like, oh no.
Yeah.
And there's also a bit where Emily Blunt's character is in the car with the son, I think. Is the daughter or no? I can't remember who's with who.
I think it's both of the sons.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, there's another one that died.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
was thinking
forgot
there's
about
two
that
kids,
until
but who is the who's the other one? Who could that be? Oh yeah.
I forgot it until she
So
like visited a grave in the middle of the
yeah.
film. It's just like, who is that her husband's grave? Oh wait, the kids.
uh, they're trying to get out of the monster's way, and then there's like a bus is
Yeah.
coming towards them, and then they have to reverse. And that is the first take. That shot because Emily Blunt was actually terrified of the stunt bus coming towards her. So
It did have that. I remember that opening had a few kind of subtle things that were quite nice, like callbacks or things that you'd see later in the film. Like I think when they were in the shop on the shelf, you saw the was it like a rocket ship that's in the first film that
Oh,
Yeah.
the one that
makes a
drops.
noise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
and also it did something in the opening where it would like cut to, I think, because it was these two perspectives, Emily Blunt's and John Krasinski's kind of in conjunction, which was something that they used later on in the film. They did something where it would like, I think it had a shot of the radio, and then it would sort of pan out of the radio of the other car, which I thought was quite effective. And you also saw later on when they were kind of telling two or even three stories at the same time. You're able to always, I think, it helped build like the tension with these different perspectives going on.
you want to talk about that three perspective bit now, or
Yeah,
May as
sure.
well, I
keep going?
guess.
Yeah, so it must be right near the end of the film because there's so basically, oh no, never mind. I forgot the radio thing. Okay, so it's when Regan and Emmett are on the docks trying to get a boat across to the island where they figured out the radio signal is coming from, and then there's a little girl comes up and they're like, oh, she seems cool. Let's go help her out. But then she like puts, it's like a chain, a collar around Killian Murphy's neck, or Emmett, that attaches him to a pole, and he also has like it's like a shawl of like glass bottles and jangly loud things. So, they're going to alert the monsters. And at the same time, Emily Blunt has just got back from getting another oxygen tank or another two oxygen tanks because the baby's one was running low. And the son, uh, with the baby, has hidden in the furnace to escape a monster, but hasn't put the towel over the thing, so they can't actually get back out, and they start suffocating. So then you get all these three tense bits happening at once because Emily Blunt encounters the monster that the kids are hiding from while they're suffocating. So you get some spicy tension with Emily Blunt like exploding one of the oxygen tanks to turn on the sprinklers so that the monster can't hear them anymore. And then on the docks, Cillian Murphy does the thing for dive, which is in like the first scene.
Yeah, that
So
was
that
another,
was
like,
very
definite-
obviously set up. As
But
well
the
as
thing is,
the towel was very obviously set up as well for someone to not put that over the door.
yeah,
And then so they get the monster away, and then Emily Blunt manages to open the door, and you see, which is very sweet, that the son actually left the oxygen mask on the baby because they were taking it in turns, but then he just left it on the baby and let himself pass out, which is quite nice. So she gets
I mean, to
them
be fair,
more
he did get
oxygen.
them into that mess, so kind of.
Yeah, but if you're a scared like kid, what is it, he's supposed to be like 11 or 12, you wouldn't expect them to basically sacrifice themselves.
yeah.
Hmm.
But going back to like the dock scene, I really enjoyed that because, as you were saying about the whole dive thing, I think that was a really powerful moment. I mean, it might not have been that effective because the actual hand gesture or the sign language for dive was like quite predictable. Like, what else would it have really been? But I did like the fact that Cillian Murphy's character was kind of dealing with kind of a lot of guilt, and the fact that initially he was quite reluctant to keep them there because he said they were he was running out of resources and stuff. And I also liked the fact that when they came across these people, and it was like just because of the fact that society's kind of all shut down, you'd think you'd be relieved to see other people, but obviously these sort of cannibals have resorted to this in this kind of desperation. So and obviously that contrasts with later when they go to the island, and there's kind of a more of a sense of community there. So I liked kind of those different responses to the end of the world, I guess, and the fact that like how different people would react to it.
Yeah, because Cillian Murphy's character says that there's like no good people left.
Yeah.
So I would have assumed that maybe, I don't know if he's just making that up or if he's seen the Docks people. No, he wouldn't have known about them because then they wouldn't get captured. But because obviously people would become quite savage to try and just stay alive. But you do obviously, like, you know, the main family is are all, they're very, very nice. And then the people on the island seem to be trying to look after each other, although they don't really get any like defenses set up for if one does come over, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I like I sort of like that island part where, I mean, I get in the grand context of things, I think the fact that the aliens couldn't swim is a bit like not the greatest excuse, but like it serves the plot.
It makes sense when you look at their like physique, though.
Yeah,
They
true.
don't look like they can swim.
But it just feels like they completely neglected like even the possibility that a boat might drift to shore with one. Like I'd have thought they should have like set up some defenses like Cillian Murphy had done in the start of the film when it crushed the boy's foot.
Yeah, I guess
I
they
mean,
just
lovely
kind of become
scene.
complacent when none
Yeah.
of them had come, and you obviously see that although they don't have any real kind of response to if the aliens did come, well, I mean, he's credited as man on island, but he actually had, I can't remember, you know, like the guy who was actually killed by one of them when he was trying to go back to his children. I mean, he basically sacrificed himself. I mean, obviously he didn't die straight away, but the fact that he straight away got in the car and started beeping the horn, I mean, if he wasn't there, I think they'd all just died in a matter of minutes.
Yeah. To be fair, I guess it's very unlikely a boat would drift ashore with one of them on, because they don't know how intelligent they are. And if, you know, they're fairly far away, it's like, can't swim, they're not going to get over. So, I mean, I guess it's fine, but you would have thought that they might have at least some plan, because man on island, you know, immediately puts his kids in the wardrobe and stuff like that, but it seems like no one else has a plan.
Yeah, you'd have thought you'd like, even if you weren't doing defenses, you'd have like an evacuation plan or, you know, just like something in place to like or get to hiding spots or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh no, my notes have fallen off. Fallen off? Turned off. So what did you think? I thought it was interesting that the film was like very by the books, but in kind of a good way, in terms of like everything that's set up is paid off. You know, like with the towel on the door and the dive sign language.
Yeah.
And it's like that, you know, everything has to be paid off. And when one of them puts the gun down, and then the boy, you know, that has to be paid off. Like you can tell it's very much like kind of Hollywood, where it's like this, you know, this has to happen, this has to happen. But it's also just quite satisfying in a way that there's not really anything left, just unresolved.
Yeah.
because in that sense, it feels like it works quite well in isolation, just as a just this film alone. If you ignore the first one and then any possibilities, which I think it's quite likely that there'll be a sequel to or like a third part. But I do think that, as you were saying, a lot was paid off, and also that ending. I think a lot of I mean, obviously, especially in the first one, I think it was written kind of meant to comment on like the value of family and kind of the sacrifices that these characters are making for each other. And I think this one was more about kind of living up to that reputation that had been created by John Krasinski's character, and obviously you see that in Cillian Murphy, who is trying to. I mean, he's hesitant when they first come, but he's trying to kind of take over that role as a father figure, I guess, to especially Regan. But then also that end scene with both the children in parallel, kind of fighting off the aliens. I think it does work well of setting, like resolving a lot of what's set up at the start about like the impact that John Krasinski's character's death has had on the family.
Yeah. And it kind of lets the character growth happen for Regan in terms of her, because she seems to be one that's struggling. Well, actually, no, both the kids are really struggling with John Krasinski's death, but she really feels like she has to try and live up to him. So,
Yeah,
kind of
Yes, because she's the
realizing that she
oldest.
does, yeah. So that's kind of like the big moment for her.
yeah, because she definitely takes it upon herself to kind of lead the family, especially when she's going out to find these people, and it's so terrifying when you think that her venturing off by herself. I mean, obviously, just like the first one, there's a lot of kind of walking around in this film, but I think that it's very tense, especially with the scenes with her, because she wouldn't really know if, like, when she goes into that train, if something fell on the floor, obviously she wouldn't be able to hear it, but that would instantly set off the monster. So I think that it's I think I probably liked it a bit more if she was able to kind of find a way out of that situation rather than Cillian Murphy just showing up to save her. But it does make sense with his character and also the plot. But I would kind of like, because obviously she was the one that was able to work out the signals. And I did really like that idea. Obviously, as the eldest child, trying to kind of take charge of the family, I guess.
Yeah. But Emmett does, because he has to kind of, he has to feel like he's redeemed himself after his family's died. So I guess it's like sacrificing one character point for another.
Yeah. I felt that because of I'd say this one was more focused on the children more, and Emily Blunt's kind of took a bit more of a back seat because obviously there was that tense scene when she went out to try and get more oxygen, but that was like the only real moment with her that was felt that important because like especially the ending was more focused on the children.
Yeah, she was kind of preoccupied with keeping the baby safe, and
Yeah,
I kind of like that whole idea that the children get more of a role in this one than in the last one, where it was sort of like mainly John Krasinski and Emily Blunt carrying the film.
yeah,
Like, and then obviously they introduce Cillian Murphy here, but I don't feel like he was like the main character. I feel he very much took a back seat and sort of allowed allowed, what's her name, the oldest girl,
Regan.
Yeah, I think his character sort of allowed her to sort of express herself and come into her own a bit more. Um, and it's sort of in the same way that I guess sort of the baby like brings a sort of sense of responsibility on the boy, and like he got them into that mess by like venturing out, but he was willing to sacrifice himself, and in the end he destroys the creature with the feedback thing.
Yeah. Is
Uh,
it him that shoots it as well, or is that Emily Blunt? I can't remember.
he shoots it, I think.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder
Um,
what the next, if there is going to be a next film, what that will focus on, or who that will
well,
focus on.
apparently, so there's not been a third one confirmed, but John Krasinski says he has ideas. And what I find interesting is that it wasn't planned to have multiple films because each one never feels fully resolved, but also almost like it's not the beginning. They all kind of feel
Yeah.
like the middle of a TV series.
Yeah, it
Um,
kind of dropped in
so
with the first one.
yeah, I assumed it was like they'd planned a trilogy, but apparently they haven't, and John Krasinski had to be convinced to come back for a sequel.
I mean, I
Because
guess that.
this one has lost two of the original writers, and it's just John Krasinski writing it. But I think it still stands up because a lot of the writing's still pretty good, but there doesn't have to be much because it's all about like the set pieces, and the direction really helps. The cinematography and direction really helps hold it together with all the silent moments, and kind of there's a lot of obstructed angles, so you can't always see where the monsters would be, and uh likes playing around with fairly tight angles for claustrophobic stuff, and when people pick stuff up or put stuff down, it always like focuses on the legs and then where the objects go, which I thought was cool. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really works in a cinema because I didn't watch the first one in a cinema, but we watched the second one. And I mean, apart from that one time that someone, what did it? Did they like sneeze or something? Like
Yeah.
right at a really quiet point. But having that kind of like darkness around you and being enveloped by it really helps add to the tension. So it is a great film to kind of bring people back to the cinemas.
Yeah, because I feel like it's one that ironically is, well, it is quite dependent on its sound obviously, but it's not like it doesn't have the most like it doesn't use sounds. It's very specific about its use of sound obviously because that's like the whole concept of the film. But I think the fact that because of that, I think if you were watching at home maybe it'd be quite easy to become a bit disengaged with it. Some of the longer sequences are just walking and stuff, but it's the sort of film where you have to be. I mean, it's only like the first one. It's only just over 90 minutes, so you just have to be fully invested in the story the whole time in order for it to have its biggest impact, even like in the moment. Because then, like the setups earlier in the film, when they pay it off later on, I think is more impactful.
yeah.
Mm.
I think I like the fact that it wasn't too long like the first one. It was only just an hour and a half, given a lot of movies tend to be like sort of 2 hours nowadays. It was good because like I imagine like if you like see it in the cinema, then you're not kind of just stuck there for too long, which like might not be the first consideration to a lot of people, but like if you've been in lockdown for like ages, going back to the cinema like might feel a bit uh like you might not be like able to sit through like a full 2.5 hour movie in the cinema. So it was kind of nice to sort of ease back in, and hopefully now things are opening up, we'll get a boom of movies, given
Yeah,
lockdown halted a lot of stuff.
but I definitely agree with like, an hour and a half thing, because I feel like if they did try and make it any longer, it would. They didn't. I think they had like a very focused like area for each film so far, but I definitely feel like it ended and I kind of wanted more, and that's why I feel like it's a bit weird that, as Tom was saying, they hadn't planned for this to be even have a sequel or be a trilogy at this point, because it does feel like it is a bit unresolved at the end. And although I guess it wouldn't be the end of the world if, I mean, it probably would because of the creatures, but if they ended with just this shot with like the kids, because it does feel very satisfying that they've had this kind of arc, and it links back to the first one, obviously. But I would like to see more of this universe, I guess.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah,
because,
I want
like-
a third one, but I want it to end on the third one. If you know what I mean. I don't want it to be like 10 movies.
I think weirdly
Yeah.
enough, like I feel like this film has all the hallmarks of like being a good ending. Like all the characters go through an arc. It ends on like a satisfying note of like Cillian Murphy going like, I'm not your father, but you are. Like, you know, all of that stuff. But like equally, I don't think I'd be happy with the ending here. Like the
Yeah.
first film, it was more like it kind of ended, but I didn't think like it needed a sequel or you know, you'd want more, but it wasn't necessary. Whereas like here, it's hard to tell whether it's like necessary or whether I'm just really invested in the universe now.
Yeah, I
so
wanted a sequel after the end of the first one because it did feel like it was unresolved. But like looking back at the episode, I enjoyed it
It's
a
because
bit
like
more.
it's
So it could
because
be
like
depending on investment.
yeah.
I think
in
the issue with having go on.
Like because in the second one, all the characters have gone through an arc and stuff, but like Emily Blunt's still stuck in the airtight chamber with the baby, and you know what's gonna happen with that. I feel like the third film would be like interesting to see how like they'd approach like maybe over a longer time period the baby growing up in this kind of post-apocalyptic world. Like
Yeah, and like seeing how the family would try and reunite, and if they're able to kind of rebuild this, the island like as a way of escaping. Because I feel like in the first one, obviously it was quite late on that they discovered that obviously the creatures were impervious to any bullet shots, but if you play this high pitched noise, then they kind of open up their outer shell and you can shoot them. So I think at the end of that film, although at the start they were presented as being invulnerable, kind of like indestructible, I think now, especially the fact that they've built on further weaknesses in this film, that they can't swim, which obviously a few people had discovered quite quickly because it looked like they'd been living on this island for quite a while. I think that if they do a third one, and that's going to be the finale for this trilogy, then they could kind of slip into this cliche of like trying to destroy all of the aliens, and they could try and like reveal another weakness. And at that point, it feels like at the start they were so sinister and scary because they felt really dangerous, but now because they've revealed all these different weaknesses and vulnerabilities, it doesn't necessarily have that same impact. So I think that if they do a third one, which I would like to see, then they have to be quite careful about how they handle it.
yeah,
Well,
because
I agree with your points there, but the existence of aliens, as in the film Aliens, the sequel to Alien, I'm kind of fine with it just becoming like an action shootout, because that was also another film following a very tense sci-fi horror, but it still worked really well.
Yeah,
So I think, and it's kind of the thing of zombies have a lot of weaknesses. They're not exactly very powerful if you see one zombie, but it's the fact there's a lot of them, and you don't really know how many of the creatures there are. So
They never really
it all
seem to
depends on
be.
that.
It always seems to just be one in these films. So I think, apart from obviously in the flashbacks, but I think that if you, maybe if they do show like a pack of them, then it would be a bit more difficult to handle.
I mean,
Yeah, because they were saying about the government arranging ships off the island, so it is possible that there's some kind of like military force somewhere, but I don't know.
I
Yeah.
don't think that would work though. I might just be.
Oh yeah, I'm
moving.
not saying these would work. I'm just saying things that could. This is just random speculation.
Yeah,
from
but like
at the end of the,
But like, if it
at the
turned
end of
into a
the day-
shootout, it would kind of like go against the tone of the first two that like the whole sort of franchise is based on. Like,
Again, Alien and Aliens, it
Yeah,
still
but
worked.
I feel
but I
like
think the possibility
obviously
for
it's
error
not.
is going to be like
Yeah.
really high. Like, I mean, I haven't seen Aliens. I'll just take your word that it's good. But like, just because that is good doesn't mean that like every shootout.
Oh, I'm not
that's
saying
a
it will
sequence...
definitely be good.
Yeah, it's just like
Also, I feel like these films were built on kind of meant to be more of an allegory almost, or at least they started off as being more about the family, and because it's so concentrated on
Yeah.
those characters, I think it'd be a bit detrimental if you start to move away. And obviously in this it does provide more of that scope of the wider world as opposed to the first one where it's basically just these like 5 or 4 and then back to 5 people. But
it's through the eyes of the kids.
Yeah, because if they do this big shootout with the aliens, I feel like it would become less focused on this family and these characters, which I think is sort of the crux of the franchise.
Yeah.
I feel like the best way. I mean, there might just be another way that I just haven't thought of, which isn't possible because I'm on the podcast and I have a objectively correct opinion. But like, if there was, because the family's kind of split in two at the moment. There's the boy, the baby, and the mum who are stuck back on the mainland, and then there's Cillian Murphy and the daughter, like separately. Like, if there was some issues sort of with them, like being able to reunite, or because like if the film is about them trying to like reunite and try and like find safety on the islands and sort of rebuild their lives from that, I feel like that's the best way they can handle it without like shoehorning in like some other huge weakness or like I don't know, the army that just randomly comes in, or
Yeah. Well, interestingly, Paramount have hired Jeff Nichols to write and direct a spin-off based on an idea that John Krasinski had. So that's not actually going to focus on the family, but I assume I'm just assuming that because it's a spin-off. But it will be in the same universe, so it'll be interesting to see how they handle it. And John Krasinski isn't writing it, but he had the idea. So I have no idea. We have to wait till the end of March 2023 for that. So that's 2 years. But
I'd rather have
what will happen there.
I'd rather have a sequel than a spin-off, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I feel if it diverges too far from what it was at its core, like the story about a family in this like post-apocalyptic world, then like it just kind of becomes a sort of what's the word? It's like sort of cliche, just like a fad. It's just like, wow, they can't make noise, guys, because of the aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because I like the way that obviously the fact, as we were saying when we reviewed the first one, that it's really interesting that they've chosen this family because obviously they have the inherent advantage over other people that they're able to survive through the sign language. And I also think that was a different reason, but one that was demonstrated quite well was the fact like the selfishness of the boy, the selflessness of the boy when with the oxygen and the baby, and the fact that they have to like grow up fast and adapt to these situations. I think that the family's very good at that, and they're all quite independent, which you obviously see a lot more in this film when it starts to break down. And something else, as I was saying with the scene with the boy and the baby, obviously with the first film, we've seen that they aren't afraid of killing off some members of the family because 2 died in the first one. Obviously, the other child at the start and then the dad at the end. So I think that helps build that sense of tension because you know that not everyone is safe. And I think if they do a third film, I think there is maybe a possibility that one of these the core members of the families do die, or maybe Cillian Murphy's character or something like that.
I feel like it'd be affected to have Emily Blunt die, given like,
yeah, she's on the chopping block.
yeah. Well, because then that would just kind of mean the kids would have to like grow up even faster and without having any like either of
How
the
are they
parents.
Gonna have to try and make like formula milk for the baby or something.
I'm just gonna
That
have
would
to,
be quite good because
they'll just
I
have
mean
to
not the
milk
formula
Cillian
milk,
Murphy.
because I feel like if they could do that because obviously
Wait, they could
feel
milk
like
Cillian Murphy. Squeeze on those teeth.
But because this one was less focused on Emily Blunt's character, maybe they do have this sort of emotional climax in the first one where she does die off, and then I feel like that would be a satisfying arc for Cillian Murphy's character. If he
You have to specify what it is.
I mean, I'm talking about if he just becomes the father figure, because obviously that's sort of this inner conflict I guess he's having when you first meet him, but obviously he would have to deal with a lot of the logistical things of bringing up the baby.
See, oddly enough, when I saw him on the poster, I mean, I hadn't actually watched any of the trailers beforehand, but when I saw him on the poster, I was kind of like, well, I mean, John Krasinski's dead, so like, who's Cillian Murphy? Why is he here? How are they going to like introduce him? But it turned out they did it really well. It just kind of seemed like he'd always been there.
Yeah, because in the cinema, I heard someone when he was there with his mask on, they were like, "Is that John Krasinski?" Which, I mean, I don't really know how they'd be able to bring him back because obviously he died, but
Zombie.
Yeah, I actually when they showed the people on the docks, I don't know if it was just like I couldn't really see it properly, but I did think that she was when that girl appeared that she was actually a zombie. I was like, what is that?
Because her skin looks like really weird.
Yeah, I thought it was going to introduce
they live like in salt water, so that's what makes their skin weird.
I thought they was going to introduce like a whole arc of like they've like planted eggs in humans or something like alien style, and now they're zombified or something, but
yeah,
I feel like that could have just got a bit ridiculous. Cool. Well, I think it's time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Let's go to the obviously updated website.
Well, the most important one is on there at least.
Yeah. How would you say it compares? Would you?
Well, I'm gonna say it's basically the same as the first one, and I'm also giving it a 7.5.
Let's see what I gave the first one. 7.0.
Give it a 7.
I
mean, this was in the days where we thought we could only give it like 0.5s, 0.0s.
I feel like 7.0 is a
And
bit harsh.
0.25s.
Yeah, 0.25 for some reason.
I think I'm gonna go. Yeah, 7.0 again. Like, yeah.
I'm gonna go. I gave the last one a 7.25.
You're gonna go.
I'm gonna bump this one up to a 7.3. I mean, it's obviously a very small difference that might have just come from watching it in the cinema, maybe.
7.375.
But
0.05 difference. Amazing.
Damn.
Well,
so it's
that's enough to
technically
put it
better,
above
in
the
my
first
opinion.
one.
Yeah.
Damn. Sequel's better than the original. Cool. Well, it is time for submission
Submissions.
spotlight. No one ever sends anything in, so
Disgusting.
yeah. Submit something now.
No,
Why not?
you don't want to.
Fair enough. Right, it's time for recommendations.
It is.
Do you have anything, Tom?
Yeah, I've got like 3 things.
Wow,
Good,
why
because
am
I
I not
don't have
surprised?
anything.
Okay.
Go on.
I actually do
So-
have something.
Ooh.
Ooh. I bought a couple DVDs because there was a 2 for £10 offer. So I watched something that Ollie has recommended in the past, 12 Angry Men. It was very good.
Ooh. Yeah.
And I also watched the Sergio Leone film, Once Upon a Time in the West, which I think is really good. Great characters, obviously great direction, with another brilliant jewel at the end. Although that there's a woman as the main character, I don't think it does too well of presenting women in a realistic way. So that kind of knocked it down a few pegs. And there are a couple of things that I don't know if I just missed, because it feels like one of the characters is on the way to jail and then is suddenly free and it doesn't say why. But the rest of it's really good. There's loads of great moments, like a point where you think you see someone's boot because they're climbing down off the side of a train, and you're like, oh no, the good guy's gonna get shot, and the bad guy's going up to them with a gun, and then suddenly you hear a bang, and then there's the end of a gun pointing out from the boot, and you realize it's on his arm. That was really cool. So there's loads of great moments like that, and the start, which is like the opening credits, is basically just 5 minutes of 3 guys waiting around in an abandoned train station, and it just still looks really cool. And the music is top notch. So that's a good Western. I've also finished Futurama, so I can finally recommend it.
Nice.
It's just great animated sci-fi sitcom with where the characters over time just gradually get more and more in depth, and you really grow attached to them, but it still manages to be consistently funny throughout. So that's great. 10 seasons. Basically all of them are really good. So watch that. And then finally, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard have released a new album, Butterfly 3000, and it's really good. They've gone into another genre they've never done before. It's basically like synth pop. And it's probably their most upbeat album, and the reason it's so positive is because the lead singer-songwriter recently became a dad, so there you go.
Damn.
So there's lots of really good synth licks, but it still manages to keep the prog feel of polymeters and stuff like that in there, and yeah, it's a really good album.
Can confirm it's a bop.
Oh, you listen to the whole thing?
Well, I did, because I listened to the song you sent me again, but then kept it playing, so I played the second half of the album and then went back and played the first half. So
Nice.
yeah, if I accidentally left it playing and then went back to play the first half, that is good.
Yeah.
Although to be fair, it goes kind of the songs blend into each other, so it makes sense why I didn't realize it was like still going and hadn't stopped.
Indeed.
Cool. Well, seeing as I'm still watching the X-Files, I'm gonna give you a music recommendation again. It is the album Reprise by Moby. It's basically like an orchestral greatest hits album. Where like he's gone back and over his like catalog and re-recorded a load of his songs with an orchestra. But it's not like it's just straight up orchestra. He's got like drums. He's got acoustic guitars and pianos and a few songs of gospel choirs in them, and then it's got like a huge list of like featured vocalists. So basically, like none of them I'd ever heard from before, but then again, my music taste is pretty narrow and niche, so yeah, it's good. There's also apparently a documentary about his life that he made, but I haven't seen that, so I can't recommend it.
Disappointing.
Oh, I mean, I guess I could recommend something else actually. The Netflix show Sex Education, because I've finished that recently. So yeah, that's good. If you haven't seen it already, it's set in like a British sixth form, and like it's sort of centered around this character, who his mum is like a sex therapist, who's kind of like overly interested in his life and a bit overbearing, and so sort of that carries on to him, and he sets up this clinic where he gives out sex advice to other students for like 20 quid. But then like sort of like especially towards the second season, it sort of goes away from that and focuses on like the interactions between characters and uh, the development of like how each of them learn to be a bit better, and yeah.
Nice.
So it's also got some pretty good representation in it if that's something you're interested in. Um, it's got like a quite a diverse cast, and like there's like a few openly gay characters in it, so it is cool. Watch it.
Cool. Doesn't it? I know you said it's set in a British sixth form, but isn't it like a really American vibe?
Yeah, it kind of does have an American vibe. It's like it is still definitely British, so it's kind of weird. Like it's also kind of weird because like it has that sort of atmosphere of like a normal sort of like teen drama, but kind of subverts it a bit. Um, so rather than just like falling into the pits and the cliches, it actually kind of comes into its own and does its own unique thing. So yes,
Cool.
Groovy.
shame on you, Ollie.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I don't
You
have
should be.
anything.
Cool.
Should we say what we're doing next week?
Yes, you should.
Did we say we're doing American Graffiti?
I think we did,
Yeah.
yes. And then
Yeah.
the week after that, we'll do a really, really good film. To stay tuned next week to find out what that is. Tom's starting the dying process right now. Anyway, tune in next week for American Graffiti. These episodes are kind of getting shorter, I've noticed. Like, we're at 50 minutes now.
Oh, I thought we started
no.
at 5 first.
No.
I thought we'd be good like for a decent time.
I mean, it's alright. I think we finished like a couple episodes around the 50 mark. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at ELV Podcast. I just posted on the Instagram yesterday for the first time in like 6 months. And it was a story, it wasn't even a post. I think Ollie updated the Twitter like a month or two ago. So you should definitely follow us there.
Yeah.
There's our website,
Consistency.
which hasn't been updated since like episode 40. So you should definitely follow us there. There's the mailing list, which we haven't updated since like episode 25. So if you're going to follow us anywhere, you must follow us there. And then there's like you can subscribe on YouTube, that'll be good. Or you can go onto podcast platforms, which keep forgetting to paste the descriptions in. So they just say something like, Tom do the description. We didn't have any submissions. So go follow us on all of them right now and tune in next week for American Graffiti. Alright, see ya.
Alright, see you.
See ya.
Yeah, that's it.